Hello and welcome to Growing Through It, your go-to podcast for real leadership stories. I'm your host, Jen Arnold. In every episode, you'll hear straight talk from leaders who face their own challenges. We'll dive into those whoops moments and the insights that followed. This podcast is about the lessons that refine us, shared to help you confidently lead in your own style. Whether you're looking to steer your team towards success or just seeking a spark of inspiration, you're in the right place. Let's grow through it together. Hey there, and welcome to the Growing Through It podcast. I'm your host, Jen Arnold, and this is a solo episode. This has been a trying week with a really sick kiddo who's out of school, and, I wasn't feeling my best either. I think I had some kind of low range or low grade thing that whatever she had, but my poor daughter had just been miserable with a fever, a sore throat, and then started throwing up yesterday. So good times. Luckily, today's the day where she feels better, and school's actually on the horizon for tomorrow, which is thrilling. So I'll have about a solid week and a half until both of my kids get out of school on May 20th. And yes, they get out of school early here in Nevada, so I've got to get the summer schedule and camps aligned for the summer because it's coming quick. So when I thought I would have some deep work time, I was like, I got 2 weeks, kids are getting out, I'm going to really hunker down and get some work done. Of course, life throws me a curveball, and just like everyone else, just like you, I have to deal. So one way I'm going to deal with this is I'm not going to edit this podcast. What you get is what you get. So when I stumble on my words, if my daughter interrupts me, she's upstairs on her iPad, or I say something that doesn't make sense, I'm just going to move on because ain't nobody got time for editing today. Now, I originally had planned I was going to record some tips for asking for feedback, but I got an interesting email to share. And as I got woken up in the middle of the night, it inspired a thought that I will, of course, tie back to leadership. But here goes. Yesterday, I got a sales email, which appeared to be like a cold sales email, and it was from a business coach, and it was tailored to me. So, for example, they had checked out my LinkedIn profile, they mentioned my company growth signals, and there's really nothing too out of the norm. I'm sure you get them all the time, people wanting something from you or trying to sell you something. Hey, no problem there, but here's the kicker. It was from a business coach I actually worked with in 2019. And we worked together for a minimum of 6 months to close to a year. I don't think we worked together a full year, but it was a minimum of 6 months in 2019. So it wasn't like it was a couple of phone calls. Now you may be thinking, oh, that poor lady made a mistake. Why is Jen beating her up? Or, I'm sure there's so many thoughts you have going through your head. And yes, mistakes happen. Maybe somebody wrote that email for her. Maybe there was a sending mistake. Maybe she has so many clients, she forgot them. She forgot me. And all of those are valid reasons, right? We all make mistakes. I'm not mad about it. In fact, it's a little bit amusing. I was like, kind of curious, amused, annoyed, all of the things. But one thing I did experience is feeling like she didn't remember me. To me, I know it's usually whenever, like I'm a trainer and I'm a speaker. So people may remember me and I don't remember them because I never talked to them, right? But I remember all of the clients that I've had. I work with organizations, and if we developed a relationship with the employees, I remember them. And it just made me feel like she didn't develop a relationship with me. And she obviously doesn't keep in contact with me except for a cold email that kind of sidestepped the fact that the relationship ever happened. Now, granted, she would have to do a little bit of research. I changed my company name last year, but my profile pic's the same. It says my old company name in my LinkedIn profile. But regardless, I was just left feeling like, wow, I remember her. I felt like we connected on on a personal level. But obviously that wasn't reciprocated. And folks, relationships are what drive engagement with anything, right? Relationships make the world go round. Relationships give you jobs. As a leader, relationships are crucial to people wanting to work for you and then also staying engaged when they actually work for you. But I also get it from the flip side. I manage a team of 15, and did I develop deep personal relationships with everybody on my team? No, absolutely not. But I tried. I feel like I tried. But I think if I went back now and managed a team of 15, I would do it a little bit different because it really does matter. I once had a leader who thought I was from the Midwest. He said it a few times and I corrected him every time. I mean, no, I am from the South. I'm from Alabama. I mean, have you heard my accent? Quit making the same mistake. Luckily, I liked my boss, but it's been 9 years since I left that role and I still remember that mistake he kept making. And I kind of felt like, do you not know me? It felt lazy, I guess is the way I'd say it. Like, why can't you just commit this to memory? Why can't you write this down and refer to it? Like, it's not that hard to remember some basic facts like where your people are from. And that's why I recommend this following exercise. Here's what I want you to do. If you're a leader, or let's just say you're not a leader and you just want to get better at forming positive relationships in organizations, you can do this too. But start like a Google Doc, a Word doc, a spreadsheet, a note on your phone. I don't really care what you use, but just start a document. And I want you to write down the names of your team members. So if I had 15 people, I would write every single one down. If you are not currently a leader, I want you to think about the people you want to get to know, or you should get to know because, collaboration. Next to their names, I want you to list everything you know about them. And just start easy. You can say, hey, he's wearing a brown shirt today. I don't care. But list everything you know about them. And when you're done, just review it. What do you see? Do you know more about some people than others? Is there one person you know a ton about, but the rest of the team you don't know anything about? Is there one person you're like, they're a mystery to me? If you find that there's gaps in what you know, just go start asking and learning. Hey, where do you come from? Where are you from? What's something that you do in your non-work time? Just get to know them. You don't need to be creepy about it or invade their personal space, but just get to know them. But if you look at that spreadsheet and you already know your team well, give yourself a pat on the back and keep it up. Let us know your secrets. For real. Because if you have a strategy to share, I'd love to hear it. And then I can make sure listeners hear it as well. All right. So that's what made me want to bring this to you. I got the email and then I was like, it ties into leadership. Now, before I close out, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to keep kind of messing around with this podcast. If you are a relatively new listener, I had a podcast for 5 years called the Redesigning Wellness Podcast, ended that, and then growing through it is a newer endeavor. And I think everybody and their brother and sister and mother have a podcast now. So I'm going to keep experimenting to try to reach more listeners. And when I started, I was adamant about only having organizational leaders on, which I still am. Every other week, I'm going to interview people who have made a mistake, had a setback in their job. But I'm also going to alternate those interviews on the other weeks with interviews with experts, researchers, and authors who can offer leadership tips. And I don't want this to be a big talking head podcast because I think a lot of you who lead, great, tricks of the trade. You know how to lead well. You know some things that you can share. But there's been a few people I've come across and I've said, hey, I think this could be helpful for people, for leaders. And so the first one, I did the interview yesterday, is about how do you personally brand on LinkedIn when you're a leader within an organization. Another one is just how can leaders run better meetings? God, there are some terrible meetings out there. So I have collaborated with another facilitator and we're going to just say, hey, here are some strategies to run better meetings. And then another colleague who I've met that we're going to probably collaborate on a webinar about managing change. So as a leader, how can you manage change so your people receive it? So there you go. I'm going to experiment a little bit And if you can, if you'd be so inclined, please give me a review for the podcast and or share it with someone you think can benefit. I would really love to see this grow. And as always, thank you so much for listening to the Growing Through It podcast. And I'll see you again next week. Thanks for listening. Thank you for joining us on Growing Through It. I'm Jen Arnold, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. If today's story sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to our podcast, leave a review, and share it with your fellow leaders. And remember, each episode comes with a nugget of wisdom that we expand on in our newsletter. So if you're eager to put these insights into action, head over to our website at growthsignals.co and sign up for exclusive content that'll give you an edge in your leadership journey. Keep growing, and I'll connect with you again soon in our next episode. Until then, take the lessons learned and lead authentically.